topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the greatest experts. I am so lucky. We've got so many great experts in so many different fields like legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Our show for the next 25 minutes has become my favorite show. And one of the reasons why is from all your texts and emails that you send in, and just looking at our YouTube numbers, how our show, how it's expanded, kind of like our expert, how he's expanded his business. I'm going to say this. Let's welcome attorney Lance Drury, my friend Lance Drury. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning, Steve. It's good to see you again.
Hey,
we were just here together Friday.
Yeah, I know. This is the greatest way to start off a Monday morning. Most people hate Monday mornings, but, you know, I knew I had you, and this is our national show. And I got to tell you, people say, do you actually read the emails? I do. I read every single one. We give you the experts' contact information. This show here is so important, because it's one of those things that if you're going up against the IRS, there's a lot of sleepless nights. And I see some letters from wives that it's hurting their relationship. And here we have a firm, one of the finest firms in the United States, with Lance Drury, who can take care of this burden, get it off your shoulders. And that's why it's such an important show. This is one of our 2 out of 30 shows we do that we do multiple shows because it's so important. Lance, I got to tell you, I love your energy, but most important, I love your knowledge.
Well, I appreciate that, Steve. And I got to tell you, my legal assistants all come to work in St. Genevieve at 7 o'clock in the morning. And,
wow.
They're not always peppy, at 7 a.m. on a Monday morning from the weekend. I tell them it's the greatest hour of the week. And right before this show, Steve, we just had a Zoom call with my attorneys in Tennessee, with my attorneys in Texas, with my attorney in Florida, and had everybody together. We just started doing this. We're going to do it once a month. We had to cut it a little short because of this podcast, but in the future, we'll probably do it for a half hour every month, and I think it'll be good in terms of sharing what's going on with the IRS with each other and people learning about that. And so, yeah, I love Monday mornings too, Steve, and I love this show.
If anybody would have told you 20, 25 years ago that you would grow your firm the way it's grown, would you have believed it?
No, I mean, I had my dreams. I came back in 2005 and said, I don't care if I got to go to work at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. And I did that. I'm going to make a success. I'm not going to tell you what drove me to that. It's, you got to have your friends, but it's the people that tell you you can't do it that drive you the most. And Donna, who's been with me forever, this is the second go around. I tell everybody she's the only woman to ever come back to me. And so anyway, we're having her retirement. She's going to turn 65. She's been with me 15 years. She'll be here tomorrow. She still works a day or two a week until June. And we just sit down sometimes and we go, how did we do this? Because we've done it all in the last 15 years. And now we're in Texas. And as you know, Steve, not only are we now in Texas, my goals is to be in Miami and to be in Los Angeles before I'm done. Now I'm running out of time. I'm 72 years old, so I got to keep going on that. But hopefully next year we'll expand to at least Miami anyway.
Well, I got to tell you, Florida is going to be probably one of your best markets. But they're all good. You know, listen, we're getting calls from Baltimore. We're getting calls from New York. You know, with this national show. So tell me, people, I cannot believe with all these national commercials out there about tax relief. Tell people what you actually do.
What we do is we represent individuals and businesses who have tax liability issues with the IRS. We also represent them before various state agencies. We do audits. We are involved in criminal investigations at the state level. If people are charged with a crime for not paying their state sales tax, we will represent them in state court. That's predominantly in Missouri. So we do anything that the IRS can come after you with, and we're here to protect you because, Steve, I've seen so many people that try to do this on their own and they just end up shooting themselves in the foot. They think this is easy. They can do it all. So they call the IRS. They end up agreeing to pay back the full amount. And then they call me and they sit down next to me and they go, I can't afford to make the monthly payment. And I'll go to them, then why did you agree to pay that amount? And they go, well, this is what they told me I had to pay. And that's not true. It's all driven by your ability to pay it back. 85 to 90% of our clients never pay back the full amount. But we're here not just to get you the best possible deal on the back taxes. We're also here to protect your income and your assets. What would you do if they wiped out your bank account? How are you going to eat? Or if they took 90% of your take-home pay, or 100% of your 1099s, or 15% of your Social Security check. And guess what? When that Social Security check is direct debited into your bank account, they can take the whole thing. And then we're also here to make sure that you're compliant moving forward, because one of the conditions of any agreement with the IRS or any agency is you got to be 100% compliant moving forward, which means you got to file your returns on time and you have to pay on time. And so, you know, we represent a lot of small businesses, Steve. And I know lately we've been getting a lot of questions about business tax liability. Well, 70% or more of my clients are small businesses because the taxes aren't automatically taken out. Those are the people that get in trouble. They wait till the end of the quarter. They've already spent all the money, and the money's not there then to pay Uncle Sam. So you got to get into the habit of making estimated tax payments at least on a monthly basis, because Uncle Sam will take your money anytime. Don't wait till the end of the quarter. And so that's what we're here for. That's what we do.
Lance, let me tell you, this is something that is so important that I've learned from you, that there's a lot of people out there that think they can handle this themselves, and they end up talking to the IRS, and they give the IRS information that you would have never given out to the IRS. And it really puts them in a really bad situation. I'm sure you get people, you go, God, why did you talk to them?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I've told this story before, but I had a guy once, he owed about $40,000 in tax liability. And this is when I was still handling cases. As big as the firm's growing to, I can't do that anymore. But I got him into currently non-collectible status, which means they're going to leave you alone. They're not going to levy you due to financial hardship. They're not going to take anything from you. He's not going to have to make any payments to the IRS. But I told him, and it was in a letter to him when we closed out our services with him, you're going to get a reminder on a yearly basis that you owe the tax. And this is put into every closing letter, but don't worry about it because they're not coming after you. Well, he got that letter and he panicked and he called the IRS and he agreed to pay every last dime of that $40,000. And then he calls me. I said, why didn't you call me before you called the IRS? Because now it's too late. But he said, I admit it. I just freaked out when I got that letter. And he said, I just called him up right away and agreed to pay it.
Wow. So here's a text that we got the other day. This is from Ronald. He's in Teaneck, New Jersey. He said, I own a business. What payment options are available to businesses?
Well, it's the same payment options as individuals. You could do an offer in compromise. You can do different types of installment agreements. You know, there's what's called a streamlined installment agreement. You pay it over time. The other thing is you could enter into a partial pay installment agreement, which works like an offer in compromise in that you're never going to pay back the full amount. But it works like an installment agreement in that you pay it monthly. You don't pay it all in a lump sum. And it's hard for an existing business to get an offer in compromise. Not hard at all for a defunct business to get an offer in compromise. But it is possible that you can be in business and you could get an offer in compromise for an existing business. And then there's also currently non-collectible, showing that you don't have the ability to pay any of this back. But if you're not paying your taxes, and if you continue to pyramid liability, the IRS is going to want to shut you down. They're going to say you're not a viable business because you can't pay your bills. And so, you know, you just can't continue to pyramid liability. They take payroll tax issues very seriously, and they're really harder, and you're more likely to get a revenue officer involved at a lower liability amount when you have payroll tax issues, because they do not like for people year after year to continue to accrue liability.
This is from Sandy in Orlando, speaking of Florida, that I want to tell people that I'm a business owner, and since I found your show, I never miss one. I wish you would start talking more on businesses. Well, that's what we're doing today. Can you tell me, can the IRS take my personal assets in silver and gold?
Well, I think we had this as a question the other day, Steve, when we were just doing our Missouri, Tennessee show. And as a practical matter, I've never seen it done. But yes, but not if you have. Let's bounce back. If you're a sole proprietor, then it just flows through all your personal income and that, and they can come after everything personally. But if you're incorporated, and this is why people get incorporated, is so they can't touch your personal assets or your personal income. But there is an exception. If you have back payroll taxes that haven't been paid and you have payroll tax liability, they can conduct, and none of my clients ever submit to this because you're basically pleading guilty to a felony. There's what's called a trust fund civil penalty interview. The portion of the payroll tax that's attributable to the employee is known as the trust fund. You're paying that in trust for your employee. It's generally 50 to 60% of the total payroll tax. And if they determine that you're, if you're the one in charge of the company and knew or should have known that the taxes weren't being paid, they can find you're, quote, a responsible party. And then the significance of that is for that 50 to 60% of the total payroll tax, they can come after your personal assets. They can come after your personal income. Now, for every dollar you pay down on that trust fund, you're also paying down the payroll tax by that same amount. So it's not an additional tax in the sense that there's going to be more liability. It's just that it's a separate tax. But the significance is now you're not only talking about your business income, your business assets being at risk. Now you're personally at risk.
Here's Howard in Brooklyn. How do you become a non-collectible, and do you still have to pay penalties?
No, you don't pay anything if you're deemed currently non-collectible. What we have seen, though, in the last couple of years is that sometimes we give the client the option, even if they are currently non-collectible. And basically what you have to prove is there's no money left over at the end of the month after you pay the bills. And if that's true, and they're all allowable expenses, you're not going to pay anything back. 10 to 15% of our clients never pay a dime back. But the IRS has the right to review it. But what we're finding out in the last couple of years is that the IRS, for no reason whatsoever, no increase in income, nothing, is taking people out of currently non-collectible and making them go back to square one. And so we're leaving people the option of either placing them into currently non-collectible or making a small monthly payment like $50 or $25, because it's less likely that the IRS is going to come back after them for that. You got to understand, the IRS is more screwed up now than they've ever been. In fact, we just talked about that in our team meeting. And the IRS is so slow. It is taking us so much more time to get all these issues thrashed out with the IRS. And so it's not going to get any better. And Steve, we've talked about this before, but nobody wants the big bad wolf to come after them. So they don't want the IRS to be funded. And I get that. But guess what? If you're on your radar and you have an IRS problem, it's not going away overnight because they don't have enough people to service their problems. When we found out when we file a collection due process hearing to stop a levy, it is taking months, if not years, for us to get a hearing now. It is just so bad. So we're doing basically equivalency hearings for the most part because the clock on collections doesn't stop when you do an equivalency hearing, because the IRS doesn't have forever to come after you. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't know. And so when they do this on their own, they're not cognizant of that, and they screw things up and they pay monies back that they wouldn't have had to pay because they just put themselves on their radar with the IRS. And if they would have had a tax professional, they would have known in 6 months or a year the clock on collection is going to run out.
Here's Art in Columbus, Ohio. How does the IRS expect you to pay your taxes if they shut your business down?
Well, that's one of the arguments you make for keeping the business together. But the problem is they don't care if you're going to continue to accrue liability. They figure, we're not going to keep him open 2-3 more years and he has another $100,000 in payroll tax liability or more. So no, that they will work with you, but you got to show that the business is viable. If you're just going to continue to be in business and to continue not to pay your taxes, that's when you're in danger of being shut down. But if you can work out a payment plan with them and pay at least a portion of it back, they're not going to want to shut you down because they do know they're going to get more monies from you that way than if you are shut down.
Right. Speaking of Miami, here's Lori in Miami. She said, when is a tax return or payment considered late?
Well, it's due in April, and the date varies from year to year. Historically, it was always April 15th, but that changes. But, you can file an extension, and then the tax return is not due until October. But here's what people do not know. That extension only goes for the filing. The tax is still due in April. So if you wait 5 months and you can't pay your taxes, that's going to continue to accrue. That you still got to owe for the failure to pay penalty. And here's the other thing. If you don't file that extension and you're more than 5 months late, you've just added 25% of the raw tax for a failure to file penalty. It's 5% a month for the first 5 months, then it maxes out at 25%. So the huge mistake people make is, okay, it's April. I've got my return prepared. I owe them $15,000. I can't pay it. And then they don't file because they can't pay. Big mistake, because now that $15,000, you're going to have to add 25% more to it just for the failure to file penalty. And that's before the failure to pay penalty and interest on that debt. So even if you can't pay, file it on time or file the extension so you don't get the failure to file penalty.
Here is Trey in Atlanta. He said, I always listen to your show on iHeart. I'm curious, why was I selected for an IRS audit? And do you accompany your clients for the audits?
I don't want my clients anywhere close to the auditor. We go instead. That's what you hired us for, to protect you from the IRS. It's a condition of our continued resolution in any type of case that our clients not talk directly to the IRS. It's like talking to the cops if you're charged with a crime. Now, why you're selected? Certain expenses could trigger it. You know, if they look too big for certain expenses, that could trigger it systemically. A lot of times it's random. If it's a letter audit, a lot of times it's just a random audit. So there are different reasons why you would be characterized as being liable for an audit. And sometimes it's because of what's on the tax return. Sometimes they just pick it out randomly, and it's just the luck of the draw.
This is from Martin in Tampa. Want to know, I hired one of those national firms you talk about. I am so unhappy with them. Am I legally allowed to leave them and come on with you?
Absolutely. You are free at any time to hire anybody you want and then to leave them when you want. I tell everybody, if you don't hire me, there's 3 rules. You hire an attorney that does this every single day. Accountants are great with the numbers, but all of my attorneys have seen accountants just give horrendous advice to some of their clients because they just dabble in this. We spend 50 to 100 hours or more a year just keeping up on this. Number 2, go local. We have people in all our offices that you can meet with. And number 3, don't hire one of the big boys. There's a lot of them that just take your money and don't do anything. The industry has a bad name because of those big national tax resolution firms. So do your due diligence. Do a background check on me or anybody else before you hire. You can see we're a 4.7 out of 5 Google reviews St. Louis. We're a 4.9 out of 5 in Nashville. So, yeah, do your due diligence, and we'll be more than happy to help you if you call.
So the phone number is 888-367-6512. Do you have a website, Lance?
Yes, you can find out all of our phone numbers, all of our offices. There's a lot of great information on there. That's LanceDruryLaw.com. Lance, DRURY law.com.
Well, your show goes by so fast. I love doing this show with you, Lance. I can't thank you for the time you give us, and it looks like people really appreciate us. Hey, we've got several shows more doing this month, and we'll see you soon.
Great to see you again, Steve. I love doing the show as well.
Love you, bro. See you soon. That's attorney Lance Drury. It's going to do it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.